Okay, we're now live on YouTube. So good evening, everyone. Good evening, IFNG. Good evening, World English. Good evening, Mr. M. Good evening, Sir DJ. So tonight will be, good evening. So tonight will be the night for Sir DJ. Oh, I think I'm hearing myself. Great. So tonight will be Sir DJ's turn to discuss the comparison between IELTS and OET. So which test is better for us? So Sir DJ, take it away.
Okay, thank you very much po. Let me share my screen para may visuals tayo. Okay. Uh, September, anong date na yun? 11 pala. Here we
11.
go.
11 po.
Ang daming
11,
PowerPoints eh.
I'll trade.
So anyway, oh yeah, it's the anniversary. No, I hope those who have relatives, you're better now, and hopefully it doesn't happen again. No, we don't want any of those disasters happening again kasi we live in a civilized world po. Dapat hindi dinadaan sa violence yung mga problema natin. Dapat sa usapan. So anyway, going back to the topic. So welcome to this short webinar. I know it's Saturday, so it's your rest day, so I will try not to use up all the 2 hours if I can finish it as quickly as I can. So I'll do that for you. Okay, for a moment. Just transfer this. Here you go. Yeah, and I think that's better. All right, guys. So tonight I want to discuss which is the better test for you, IELTS or OET? And so I'm gonna discuss the differences po. Okay. And I'd like to set some rules before I formally begin. So if you have questions, please type it in the chat box or the comment box. It says here we will be having a Q&A session at the later part of the presentation. But you know what? If you have the questions, you ask them right away para hindi po natin makalimutan. All right, it's better na itanong nyo na agad. And if it's relevant, sakto naman siya sa topic, then I'll endeavor to answer it as soon as possible. Okay? Please enjoy the seminar. Don't hesitate to ask questions habang libre. Okay, your host is an expert on the subject. Hindi ako nagsulat yan. And if anyone is interested about our review programs, I'll be giving you some information. Okay, so that you can contact us. Anyway, our information is already there on screen. You can see our Facebook account and our phone number. So contact us po if you want to speak with us one-on-one. Okay, so a short introduction of myself. So my name is Lee J. De Jesus. I'm Kapampangan. I'm in Pampanga right now. I started teaching in 2005. So by next month, I would have been in the business for 16 years. So medyo matagal-tagal na. Okay. I teach IELTS, OET, English subjects. I also teach subjects for the civil service exam. Okay. And I've been a trainer for the call center industry, part-time. And next month, I'll probably start teaching CAIL and CELPIT, the English tests for Canada. I've taken my IELTS test. I got an overall score of 9, so that's a perfect score. I'm also civil service eligible. Just like most of you guys, I think a lot of you are nurses, so automatic eligible kayo for civil service. Okay. I have a teaching qualification. It's called CELTA. So it's from Cambridge, and it's a certificate in English language teaching to adults. And here's my favorite qualification. I'm not blonde. I don't have a British accent, but I still managed to get the band score 9 in speaking. So kung kinaya ko, kahit medyo gasgas yung boses, okay, sigurado, kaya nyo rin yan. All you need is, first of all, confidence. Secondly, kailangan nyo lang ng information and proper knowledge, proper preparation. Kaya naman yan. And luckily, most of you don't need the 9, di ba? 7 lang. So yakang-yaka po. So tonight, I would like to discuss some of the differences between IELTS and OET. So some people might be asking, which is better? Okay, pero maybe that's the wrong question to ask. Okay, kasi they have their own strengths and weaknesses. Mas magandang itanong siguro which one is more suitable for my situation. Kasi kanya-kanya po tayo ng situation. Okay, so IELTS stands for the International English Language Testing System, and OET stands for the Occupational English Test. Now, let's have a quick look about the format first. Okay, halos pareho lang yung format. Oh. IELTS as listening, OET as listening, IELTS as reading, meron din OET, meron ding writing, meron ding speaking. But later, I will be showing you the more specific differences para talagang matimbang ninyo kung saan nyo ilalagay yung pera nyo, because it's not a joke taking these tests. Okay? It requires a hefty investment. So what are the purposes for which they are used? Yung IELTS, well, you're gonna need to take it if you're applying for a student visa. Okay, if you're applying for professional registration, so yung mga nurses dyan, yung mga gusto magtrabaho abroad, mga doctors, mga engineers, architects, yan. I've had students of all sorts. Kailangan po ng IELTS. You can also use it if you're applying for a work visa. So I've had students na butchers, caregivers, okay, all sorts insulators, mga technicians, welders. Also needed for immigration, lalo na if you're going to Canada. It's the number one test for immigration right now. Yung mga OET, you can also use it for the same purposes, for education, registration, employment, and immigration. So far, parang halos parang pareho lang sila. No? Okay. Now, here come the differences. Yung IELTS, okay, it's recognized because it's a bit older. So it's recognized by over 11,000 organizations worldwide in over 140 countries. So marami-rami. However, OET, okay, it's now recognized in chosen organizations in 15 countries, mostly professional organizations in the United Kingdom, also in Australia, New Zealand. And good news, if you're planning to go to the United States, okay, an increasing number of states have been accepting. I think right now, there were 3 or 4 states that accepted, and the latest is Washington, D.C. For the nurses out there who are planning to work in Washington, D.C., yes, you can now choose OET. Of course, you can also choose IELTS. It's up to you. How about the test fees? IELTS right now here in the Philippines, okay, yeah, it's gonna cost you 11,640 pesos. There are price changes, every few months, okay, but most of the time these are minor changes. Naglalaro lang yan between 11 and 12,000. However, OET is pegged to the Australian dollar because the original owner of OET is in Australia, in Melbourne, the Box Hill Institute. Well, now it's called the Cambridge Box Hill Institute of Melbourne, but originally it was just the Box Hill Institute of Melbourne. Okay, so it's now currently $587 if the exchange rate is at 37 pesos. So it will cost you almost 22,000. So 21,700 pesos for now. It used to be a bit more expensive at one point. Umabot siya ng, it reached like 24,000. So it depends on the exchange rate. How about the validity? IELTS is valid for 2 years. It means if you're still in your country after 2 years, okay, you will need to retake your IELTS test. Okay, so validity is 2 years. For OET, the validity is also 2 years for registration purposes. So if you're using it to apply as a nurse, for instance, or some other type of professional, 2 years. But if you use it to apply for residence for immigration purposes in the UK or in Australia, for instance, then it's a bit longer. It's valid for 3 years. Okay. How about the exam venues? So here in the Philippines, so I didn't list all the exam venues across the world. I know there are some people watching from other countries, especially in the Middle East, but we were only able to list the ones here in the Philippines. Otherwise, it would take up too much time. Okay, so here are all the areas. Dami, no? Every major city in the Philippines. For OET, okay, then it's now conducted in of course, in Baguio, in Cebu, Iloilo, Manila, and Makati. Mhm. Sir Jobert, what do you mean by this? Can we convert the IELTS to visa? What kind of visa are you? Do you mean to say immigrant
Vi-
visa?
Visa screening po.
Oh yeah. You can use it as long as it's within the validity period. Then you can use it for any visa for any purpose related to visas. Pwede pa siya as long as it's within the validity period. Okay pa yan. Okay, don't worry about it. And by the way, if you're already working there or if you already have like resident status in that country, kunwari Canada, okay, then you won't need to retake any of the English tests. Okay, let me clarify, you only need to retake it if you were not able to leave your country. Okay, but when you're already there in the UK, in Australia, and Canada, then there's no need to retake your your English test. Okay, valid na po siya. So that requirement is waived already, right? So how about the exam dates? There are more exam dates available for IELTS. So for the paper-based test, the normal type of test that we all know, it's usually available like 2 to 3 times per month, depending on the city, depending on the province. Okay, of course, if we're talking about Metro Manila, then it would be available almost like three times a month. But in places like in my province in Pampanga, it's usually once a month. And because of the situation right now, sometimes they get canceled. So yun naman. But there's also the computer delivered test for IELTS. And that one, you can register for that. Like there are available test dates at least twice a week. So 2, 3, or 4 times a week, meron po. And you can choose to take the morning session or the afternoon session. So you have a lot more choices when it comes to the computer delivered test. But if you want the traditional paper-based test, it's 1, 2, or 3 times a month, depending on the venue. How about OET? It's now conducted in those 5 cities. Let me go back. Okay, usually once or twice a month. Definitely in Metro Manila, it's twice a month. And I think that's good because a couple of years back, okay, it was only available like once every month. And then they planned to do twice monthly sessions last year. Pero medyo na-cancel. It was a bit delayed, but now twice a month na. It's good news for people who want to take this test instead. Okay. So the release date for the IELTS, okay, your test is usually released for the paper-based test, okay, after 13 days. Okay, for IDP, okay, they will send you a text after 13 days. For both IDP and British Council, they will send you an email after 13 days. Okay, and then the actual paper report form will be available 15 to 17 days after the exam. However, this is for the paper-based test. If you take the computer-delivered test, it's much faster. I just took that test academic module, computer delivered, last July 30. So I took the test Friday afternoon, and then lumabas yung results ko. My results came out on Tuesday before midnight. Lumabas na. So that was only Friday, Saturday, Monday. It was only 2.5 days. Oh, let's say 3 days. So it only took 3 days for my results to be released. Okay, so of course, the computer delivered test is much faster, right? For OET, they will send you an email. They'll email you your results after 16 days. Okay, and then the statement of result, okay, you can download in your OET account and you can print it. Okay, so there's the difference. Practically the same. There's only a few days difference. Other important details. Okay. We're gonna answer this right away because this is a very common question that we get. Okay. If you receive a failing mark, okay, then you will need to resit all of them: listening, reading, writing, speaking. All right. So, kunwari, if you're trying to go to the United States, the requirement is 6.5 for the overall score. But they are very strict when it comes to speaking. Gusto nila 7, they need a 7. So even if you get like an 8 overall, if you don't get a 7 in speaking, then that's not acceptable in the United States. Okay? Oh, kunwari, overall 8. Yeah. And then speaking mo 6.5. Okay, of course you will retake the test, right? But you will need to retake all of them: listening, reading, writing, speaking. It's a little bit different for OET because if you fail, okay, any of the subtests, you can choose just to take that specific test. Kunwari, okay, let's pretend that you pass your listening, your writing, and your speaking. You only failed in the reading test. Then you can choose just to retake reading. Okay. However, that's not applicable if you're bound for the UK. Okay. If you're bound for the UK, then you will need to resit everything. But for the other countries like Australia, the United States, then you're allowed to resit just the failing subtest. Okay. If you have questions about this, because we always get this question, then feel free send me a chat. Okay, or somebody, one of the admins can ask me, and I'll happily discuss this a little bit more with you. Okay, so let me just summarize: IELTS full reset. Okay, OET, you can choose to reset just the test that you failed, except if you're bound for the United Kingdom, then you will have to retake everything also. Right? Now let's talk about the test format. Now, here are the main differences. Okay. So as I said, they both have like listening, reading, writing, and speaking. Unahin natin yung IELTS. Let's have a look at IELTS first. So I'm going to be sharing a PowerPoint. Here you go. Okay, can you see the presentation? Mhm. Okay, let me start with this. So, okay, here's the full flow chart for the IELTS test. So you need to be there before it usually starts at 9 for the paper based test. You should be there like an hour early. So kung 9 yung simula, you should be there by 8 because there's going to be registration. Okay. After that, they'll close the doors at 9. Mhm. And there will be a short orientation, 10 to 15 minutes. And then the listening test will start. At around 10, you have the reading test. At 11, writing. And then lunchtime. And then for the IELTS, your speaking test might be on another day, probably on another day. It can be the day before or the day after. Okay, because they cannot finish all the interviews in one day because there aren't enough uh, examiners, okay, for this one. Okay, next. Let's focus a little bit more on listening. For the listening test, okay, it will last for about 30 minutes and then you have 10 minutes to transfer your answers. There are 4 sections and 40 questions. So bawat section po, there will be 10 items, okay, per section. And everyone will get the same listening test. So what are the topics here? For the first 2 sections of the listening test, it's about everyday situations. It might be a radio interview, okay, it might be a phone call, it might be an inquiry about a certain business. It can be 2 friends talking. It can be a landlord talking to a tenant. So there's a wide range of topics to be covered. And then the later sections of the IELTS listening test is always academic in nature. So it's the situations are related to schooling. So it might be 2 people talking about a group project. It might be a professor talking to 1 or 2 students, but it's always related to the university setting. Okay. Now, after the listening test, okay, you will have the reading test at 9. So it's 60 minutes and it has 3 sections. So 3 different topics po. Okay, how long will the reading test be? It's gonna be around 2,200 to 2,800 words. So that means you're gonna be reading at least 10 pages, probably 12 to 14 pages. And again, just like listening, there are 40 items in total. Now, for those of you who are wondering, what's the passing score? Okay, what's the passing score? If you get 30 points in listening, band 7. If you get 30 points, okay, in reading, then that's band 7. So if I were you, I'm gonna target 30 plus 1. So 31 might be a better target. Para lang po sigurado, just to make sure. Okay, but most of the time, if you get 30, that's already band 7. Okay. And then after the reading test, okay, at 11 in the morning, you will have your writing test. So it's 60 minutes in total, and there are 2 tasks. And this is where a lot of people complain. A lot of people find this difficult because it's only 1 hour, yet you have to write 2 things. The first one is a report. I had a class on this earlier. Okay, you're required to write 150 words minimum. Suggested time is 20 minutes. For task 2, it's going to be an essay. So minimum 250 words and 40 minutes. So which one is more difficult for most candidates? It's usually task 1. A lot of people find task 1 difficult because for most of us, it's going to be the first time. Okay, first time to write something like this. Namang essay, we've been writing essays since high school. So I think it's a little bit easier to study. Okay, the good news is, okay, they don't have the same weight. It's not 50-50. Okay. Task 1 only contributes 33% to your score, but task 2 is 67%. So it's double, no? 33 times 2, 66 plus 1. So it's 67. So good news. If your target is band 7 in writing, you don't actually need band 7 in task 1. You can just get 6.5. No? As long as you get 7 in task 2, then okay na yun. 6.5 task 1, 7 in task 2, that will give you a band 7. Congratulations. However, even if you get 7 in task 1, kung yung task 2 mo naman 6.5 lang, then that's only 6.5. Okay? So make sure that you don't spend too much time on task 1 so that you have enough time to make your essay nice. Okay? So that's for the writing test. I'm not going to discuss the grading criteria. We don't need that right now. And finally, the speaking test is the shortest one. Shortest test out of the 4. Diba? Yung listening was like 40 minutes. Reading is 1 hour. Writing is 1 hour. But the speaking test is only 11 to 14 minutes. It's a one-on-one interview. In other countries, they still do the face-to-face interview. They just put an acrylic barrier in between the examiner and the candidate. I know for a fact in Korea, that's how they do it still. Pero in the Philippines, it's different. Okay, the candidate and the examiner will be in different rooms. You will not be in contact with each other. Okay, you'll just be using a program similar to Zoom. Okay, but the equipment is really, really nice. It's high quality, excellent cameras. Okay, they use a Bluetooth headset and it's very, very clear. Right? So you still need to go to the venue. Wala pong IELTS online. You still need to go to the venue, but you and the examiners will be in different rooms. So if you're used to video calling, like what we've been doing for the past year, then that experience might help you out because that's how they conduct the IELTS interview nowadays. Okay. So you're going to be talking to a human being who's going to be asking you questions. So part 1 would be the introduction and the interview. Part 2, the individual long term, and part 3, the two-way discussion. I want to show you an actual IELTS list. Okay. So these were my questions last July 30. I memorized my exam and I wrote them down. So let me share that information. You can take a screenshot if you want. So here you go. So these were my questions for part 1, which will last for a few minutes, 4 or 5 minutes. They asked me what's my name, okay, where I come from. Then the other questions were, do you live in a house or in an apartment? So these three, they're quite typical. These are very, very, very common opening questions in the IELTS interview. Can you describe your house? What can you see from the window? Are there trees where you live? Do you like trees? Part 1 pa lang yan. And then for part 2, this one inside the box, okay, they'll give you 1 minute to think about your answer, and there will be some scratch paper and a pencil prepared for you so that you can make notes. Why do you need to make notes? Because after 1 minute, they will take away the questions and you will not be allowed to see them anymore. Okay. After the 1 minute preparation time, the examiner will just sit and listen to you for 2 minutes. Unfortunately, you're not allowed to wear, watches or bring your cell phones inside the testing room. Okay, so don't worry about the timing. Just keep on speaking until the examiner interrupts you. If you finish early, then the examiner will just stay quiet. Okay, you will see it on their face. They will be waiting for for more answers. But if you already reached 2 minutes, then you will be interrupted, and the examiner will ask a closing question or a follow-up question. Right, and for most people, this is their weakness in part 2. But honestly, there are techniques that you can use for this. It's not that difficult if you have a system. Yun lang kailangan, sistema. And then the rest of the time, the remaining time, maybe like 5 or 6 minutes, okay, will be spent on part 3, which is called the two-way discussion. So ito yung mga tinanong sa akin, do you get lost often? Which do you prefer? Maps on paper or electronic maps? What are the advantages and disadvantages of electronic maps? Do you think children should be taught how to read maps? Do you think anyone can learn how to read maps? What is usually the first major decision that people make in their lives? Do you notice a pattern? It's centered around okay, a theme, merong tema. They don't just suddenly change the topic on you. It usually follows a central topic. Okay, so that you won't get too confused. In fact, the examiners are not allowed to ask any question that they want, because they can only ask a question from the set of prepared questions, and these questions are chosen by the by Cambridge University, by the central office there. So they don't create these questions. Most of the time, they just read them. Right now, what's the common complaint about the IELTS speaking test? Okay. It's the range of topics. And dami, they can ask you, so there are so many possible topics. Okay? And sometimes, if you're not familiar with that topic, or if it's not something you're interested in, then you're gonna have a hard time even though you have good language skills. For instance, if they ask you about your favorite historical event or your favorite historical character, would you perform well? Would you be able to talk about it for 2 minutes? Okay, because not everyone is interested in that topic. Sometimes they ask you about an author or a writer that you'd like to meet. And what if you're not what if you're not a reader? Okay? What if you prefer watching YouTube or Netflix instead of reading? Then it's gonna be hard for you. So usually even the smart students, they encounter some problems, some problematic situations, because they get topics which are unfamiliar to them. So hopefully it won't happen to you. What's the solution to that? You practice on as many topics as you can. That's the only thing that you can do, because you cannot choose your topics. Of course, you cannot choose your examiners also. Okay, these are randomly assigned. Okay, to avoid any irregularities. So that's the IELTS test. Okay, 11,000, 11 to 12,000. Okay, 4 tests. Well, it's like 5 because you have 2 tasks for writing. So listening, reading, writing task 1, writing task 2, and speaking. Okay. Now let's compare it to the OET exam. Right. Here you go. For OET, oops, let's maximize this one. Okay, this is the general flow of the OET test, it's actually quite similar because you know what? The owner of the IELTS test, okay, Cambridge ESOL, is also part owner of the OET. I think right now it's about what 60 to 70% ownership. It used to be this test OET used to be exclusively owned by the Box Hill Institute of Melbourne. Okay, but then they did some deals a few years back, and now it's Cambridge Box Hill. I think with Cambridge being the majority partner. So they revamped the OET test. In fact, I think they made it easier compared to the first version, OET 1.0. Okay, that was the original version. It was, I tried it. It was difficult. Okay, but then Cambridge came in and then they standardized the test. So it became OET 2.0. And I think it's easier now compared to the first version. So how will the test go on exam day? Okay, first of all, you need to be early then. Ganun din, it starts at 9, so you need to be there by 8. There will be a registration process. Okay, and then they will let you inside the testing room. They will close the doors at 9, and then you're gonna have listening at 9, reading at 10, and writing at 11. Now the difference is for the speaking test. Okay, um, all the candidates can expect to have all 4 tests on the same day. IELTS kasi, if your test is on Saturday, your interview might be on a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, maybe a Saturday. Definitely some people will be interviewed on a Sunday or maybe a Monday. So basically up to 1 week before or 1 week after your written test. But for OET, they finish everything. They finish all components in 1 day. Okay, it's part of the security features. It's also one way of preventing leakages. You know, other candidates telling the others that, okay, this is what came out, so you can prepare for it. No, they finish everything in 1 day. So definitely your interview will be in the afternoons. It can be as early as 1 p.m., as late as 7 in the evening. Okay. Let's take a look at the individual components. So yung munang listening. So listening is a bit longer. It's 45 minutes. Okay, and it's composed of 3 parts. Okay, in the IELTS test, there are 40 items, but in OET, there's always 42. Okay, and what's the passing score? If you get 31, very good. That's already a B. So in grade nila, it's not a band score for OET, it's A, B, C. Okay, IELTS, it's 98765. So part A, consultations. Part B, 6 short recordings related to the workplace. And then part C, 2 long recordings, usually some kind of medical discussion or medical lecture. Yung pong MCQs, hindi yan metro-wide community quarantine. These are multiple choice questions. So part A is always a fill in the blanks, and parts B and C are always multiple choice. So at least it's easier to anticipate what kind of tests will come out. How do I compare it to the IELTS test? You know what? For me, it's almost the same. Okay, because IELTS or OET, all the information, all the answers will be mentioned in the recording. So all you need really is to make sure that you read the questions ahead of time. So guys, you also need to read fast. You need to read all of the questions, okay, ahead of time, so that when you listen, you know how to follow the recording. But all of the answers will be provided for you. They cannot ask you for something that they do not provide because it's a listening test. It's not a guessing test. Okay, so it has to be provided, right? How about the difficulty? Probably the same. Probably the same thing. I don't see any, maybe the difference would be in the topics, because in the IELTS test, they have a wider variety of topics, but for the OET exam, it's more limited to the medical field. By the way, it doesn't matter if you're a doctor, okay, a veterinarian, an x-ray technician, or a nurse or a therapist. Everyone will get the same listening test. So it's not, because I think you've heard, okay, they're promoting that OET, okay, is dependent on your profession, diba? But that's not totally true. Okay, they only have specific tests for speaking and for writing, but the listening and reading would be the same for everybody. Lahat kayo, pare-pareho lang yung listening tsaka reading test nyo regardless of your profession. Okay? But the speaking and writing tests are profession dependent. So kung doktor ka, your writing task and your speaking task will be for doctors. If you're a veterinarian, then you will get that kind of task for speaking and writing. Let's go to the reading test. The OET reading test is divided into, again, 3 parts. It's very similar actually to the listening test. Okay, part A, okay, is 15 minutes. Parts B and C, 45 minutes. Why did we present it to you this way? Why didn't we just tell you the reading test is 1 hour? Because there's a little bit of a difference. Okay, they will give you the test paper for part A. Okay, there will be 20 questions there, and you will only have 15 minutes. Imagine that. 20 questions, 20 questions, okay, but only 15 minutes. It means you will have less than 1 minute to answer each question. Bakit ganun? Because they're trying to simulate what will happen in the workplace. Why? When you work in a hospital overseas, you will encounter a lot of emergencies, and the more time it takes you to research, the higher the danger that your patient will die. Okay, so they want to test if you can find information quickly. Hence, 20 questions, 15 minutes lang. Okay, after that one, they will take away the test paper, okay, for part A, and then they will give you the questionnaires for parts B and C. Now, parts B and C combined, you'll get 22 questions, but 45 minutes to answer. So ito sobra-sobra naman. Okay, there will be a total of 42 items. What's the passing score? There's a formula for it, pero ganito lang. If you get like 31 points, congratulations. Okay na yan. 31, 32, that's a safe score. 30, maybe not so safe. You should target at least 31 points for reading. I need to warn you though, reading has the lowest, in the OET test, reading has the lowest pass rate. Okay. Listening has the highest. I think what the pass rate there is about like between 80 to 90%. Okay, but reading is only between 60 to 70% po. So it means that most people who fail OET, bumabagsak sila sa reading. Okay, so if I were you guys, I'd brush up on my reading skills because it actually affects all of the subtests. Make sure that you're reading something every day, that you're improving your reading speed, that you're improving your comprehension. Okay, dito po pinakamaraming bumabagsak. Okay, let me repeat that. Most of the people who fail, they fail in the reading test. Okay, why? Maybe because you're not used to reading long texts anymore. Because the thing is, the topics can be quite specialized, and they're going to be using a lot of medical language. And if you're not used to that, you might have a difficult time, especially part C. Okay, part C, that's too long, complex texts. So they're really specialized. You need to brush up on your vocab. So that's at 10. And then at around 11, you're gonna have your writing test. Okay, now I have some good news for you. Okay, for those who've taken the IELTS before, okay, you probably had a difficult time in writing. Okay, in fact, this is where most people fail. No, for IELTS, it's not unusual to see people who've gotten like 8.5 in listening, 8 in reading. They got 7 or 7.5 in speaking. Tapos yung writing nila 6. Okay, sometimes candidates take it like 4 or 5 times. They almost get a 9 in the other subtest, pero yung writing nila 6. Unfortunately, you need at least a 6.5 in writing. Okay, if you're going to the UK or if you're going to Australia, it needs to be 7. It's more difficult. Okay. Ano bang reason dun? What's the reason behind it? I think it's because they're asking you to write 2 outputs, 1 report and 1 essay in only 1 hour. I think that's the biggest challenge there. Now for OET, the writing test is, in comparison to IELTS, is a lot easier. Why? Instead of 2 tasks, they only give you 1. Isa lang siya. And it's not even a report, it's not an essay, it's just a letter. So you're writing a letter to another professional, okay, to another person. You're not talking about a line graph or a map or a flow chart, okay? You're gonna be talking about a patient, and you're probably used to that because it's your profession, okay? Some more good news. You have a lot of time to do this because you will have 5 minutes to read the case notes. Okay. And you're not allowed to write anything during the 5 minutes. You're not even allowed to make markings during that 5 minutes. Okay. And then you have 40 minutes to write. How many words are you supposed to write? 100 to 200 words. That's the suggested range. Pero, in fact, even if you write less than 180, as long as your output is good, you can get a perfect score. As long as the language is good, the English is good, vocabulary, grammar, then even if you don't reach the minimum, well, there's no minimum word count. This is just a suggestion. 180 to 200. Because in the IELTS test, if you write less than the minimum, you get an automatic deduction. So let's recall. In the IELTS test, okay, so IELTS for part 1 or task 1, it's 150 words. Suggested time 20 minutes. 150, 20. Task 2, 250 words, 40 minutes. So that's what? 400 words in 1 hour. Okay, but in the OET, suggested 180 to 200, but you have 45 minutes to write it. So I think that's a good deal. Okay, you will have more time. In fact, I don't think you need 40 minutes to write that letter. You can probably write it in about, what, 25 to 30 minutes. You still have 10 minutes left over. Okay, it can be a referral letter, a transfer letter, or a discharge letter. So that's the writing task. And then they will release you for the lunch break. And you come back a few hours, maybe a few minutes after lunch to take your speaking test. Now, let's talk about the speaking test. Here you go. Okay, so the speaking test will last as much as possible. Okay, 20 minutes. Okay, they try to avoid finishing it early at 19 or less, and they will definitely avoid reaching 21 minutes or more. Your interlocutors will try to finish it as close to 20 minutes as possible, just like the IELTS test. Okay, it's a one-on-one interview, and of course, it's recorded. In fact, okay, if the test wasn't recorded successfully, they will call you. They will ask you to come back and do another another round for the speaking test. And then the interlocutor, also known as your interviewer, will get penalized for that. They will pay some amount of money, okay, because they have to make sure that it's recorded, because they don't want to inconvenience people. Okay, so what are the parts? First 2 minutes of the OET speaking test will be identity verification. So they're just gonna ask you to say your name, okay, mention your candidate number, okay, mention your profession. After that, next 2 minutes, it's a warm-up. They will ask you 2 or 3 questions regarding your professional background. So don't worry, they will not ask you to describe your house or describe your street, describe your neighborhood. Okay, they will not ask you about exercise or food or reading. Nope, it's all related to your job. So here are a few examples of the warm-up questions. So isipin nyo if you can answer these. Okay, they might ask you, okay, why did you decide to become a blank? So if you're a nurse, why did you decide to become a nurse? If you're a doctor, why did you decide to become a doctor? If you're a vet, why did you decide to become a veterinarian? Because the speaking test, okay, will be, will correspond to your profession. It's personalized to your profession. So that's one question. They might ask you, what do you enjoy about being a blank? Okay, how long have you been a blank? What advice would you give to a new doctor, to a new veterinarian, to a new nurse, to a new physical therapist? That's another one of the questions. But all of these, okay, will be answerable because they're about your job. Okay, sir, what if I make a mistake with those with my answers for that part. Good news. The warm-up is not recorded. Sorry, it's not graded. Okay, there's no grading for it. There's no assessment. Unlike in the IELTS test, because in IELTS, okay, the moment that they ask your name, they're gonna start grading you. In OET, they only grade the role plays. Okay, they don't grade the identity verification and they don't grade the warm-up. Yung kung mismong role play lang ang ginigrade. So what are these role plays? A role play, okay, is a situation where you'll be playing your professional role. So if you're a veterinarian, okay, you'll be playing a veterinarian, and then the interlocutor, okay, will play the part of the the dog, no, of the pet owner. Okay, if you're a nurse, then you will be a nurse in that role play, and then the interviewer will be the patient, or perhaps a parent or a child, a relative of the patient, or maybe even a friend of the patient. Okay, so it's easier. Why? Because the situations you will encounter will be related to your profession. So they won't ask you about museums. They won't ask you about what ecological disasters. They will not ask you about robots or about education in the time of COVID. Okay, it's all gonna be medical. So they might ask you about, they might ask you for advice about asthma, how to avoid it, what are the triggers. They might ask you about diabetes, things that you've encountered in university, and of course, things you've encountered in your work. Kasi yun po yung trabaho nyo. That's why a lot of people find it easier, and the speaking test of the OET has a very high pass rate. It's approximately 90%. So out of 10 people who take the speaking test, isa lang yung bumabagsak. Okay, which is a bit unbelievable to me because when I interview people, I feel like the pass rate is much lower, but according to official statistics, mataas yung pass rate niya. Okay, but that was like, what, my information is for like 2 years ago, I think. I don't have the latest stats yet for last year, but I'll try to find out. Okay, I want to show you a sample of the speaking test. So let's have a look. So if you're curious, ito po yung itsura niya. Okay, let's enlarge that a little bit. Here you go. Okay, the interviewer usually has access to 2 cards. Okay, yung interviewer nyo will have the interlocutor's card. So it says here, post-surgery setting, hospital ward, patient. So I'm the patient. The interviewer is the patient. You're a 78-year-old bachelor who lives on his own. You were admitted to hospital to have a large lesion removed from your back. You know you'll be discharged in the next few days, but meantime, you want to make the most of the rest and hospital food. You want the nursing staff to leave you in peace. But the nurse says it's time to get up and have a shower. You are feeling quite cranky. Now, that's important. Okay? Please remember, in the OET exam, if your interlocutor is moody or just a little bit irate, okay, or a bit distracted, it means it's written in the card. It was given in the instructions. Okay, wag niyo pong pe-personalin. And of course, don't be afraid, don't be nervous, because it's all part of the test. Okay, remember, in the end, they will always settle down and become agreeable. Lagi naman yan, they might be a little bit difficult to talk to at the beginning, or maybe in the middle of the role play, but towards the end, they will always agree with you. They'll always become reasonable. All right, so don't take it personally. Anyway, what are my tasks as your interviewer? Point out that you'll be home in a few days and there will be plenty of time to shower then. Explain that at your age, you need rest, not exercise. So ayaw mo mag-exercise, gusto mo humiga na lang. Argue that a shower will only wet the dressing on your shoulder and eventually comply with the nurse's instructions. So that's my card if I were doing the interview. I also have access to the candidate's card. Ito naman yung card ng nurse or ng doctor or ng veterinarian, whatever your profession, ng dentist, whatever your profession is. Okay? Now, candidates will only see this card. Okay? You will not see the blue card. the interlocutor's card. Isang card lang makikita nyo, and you're allowed to write on this. You can make notes. You'll be provided a pencil. You can underline, you can number, you can draw arrows if you want. Okay, but the interlocutor will have access to both. Yeah, and this will last for 5 minutes. Okay, it will not last for 4. It will not last for 6. They will try to finish it as close to 5 minutes as possible. Ito good news. You have 3 minutes to prepare for it. That's a lot of time because in the IELTS test for parts 1 and part 1 and part 3, you don't have any prep time. You answer on the spot. Okay? For part 2 of IELTS, you have a 1-minute preparation. Pero itong itong OET test, you have 3 minutes to prepare. So that's a lot of time. In fact, some people want to start early. My advice is don't. Okay? Don't start early. Use the 3 minutes given to you because you paid for that. Okay? You're gonna pay 22,000 for it, so you might as well, maximize the time given to you. Okay? So those are the comparisons between the two tests. Okay, do you have any questions or clarifications so far? You can just, if you're in the Zoom room, you can just turn on your microphone. If you're on YouTube, then type your questions and the admins will relay it to me. Okay, do we have questions online so far? Mhm. Okay, all right. So kung meron po, tanong nyo lang. Now, I'd like to give you an offer. Okay? Would you like to see a sample of a role play? Gusto nyo bang i-try? Mhm. So if you want, okay, you can play the role of the patient and I will be the nurse. Even though hindi ako nurse, okay, I know how to do the test. Okay, so I want to provide our viewers with a model of the test. Yeah. But I need a partner because I can't really do it alone. Okay, kailangan ko ng kabatuhan. I need somebody to speak with me. So consider it a free practice, free assessment. Okay, so instead of enrolling, you can now get it for free. And don't worry, I will give you enough time to study the card. Yeah. Sino pong gusto? Oh, people are pushing names. Some saying Sir Jobert. Okay.
Hello, sir.
Hello. This is Sir Jobert. Would you like to try it?
Yes, sir. But this is my first time to try. I don't know. I don't have an idea actually for this kind of mock.
Oh, it's okay because the situation will be written on the card. You just need to follow that. Okay. Don't worry about the timing. I'll manage it. I'm used to timing these things. Okay. And what else? Yun lang naman. So let's show our audience the card that we're gonna be using. Oh, by the way, do you want to be the patient or do you want to be the nurse?
I think I will try to be a patient, sir.
Oh, because
Or
the role of the nurse,
relatives.
because the role of the nurse is actually more difficult. So the patient's role, that's easy. Okay, so let's use let's use this one. Epilepsy. There you go. So I'll read it out loud. Okay, I'll show the card to our audience. Right? Yeah, practice speaking. Yeah.
Mm.
May nawala. Okay, let me look for it again. Okay, let's have epilepsy. There you go. So let me read Sir Joe's card first. Okay. Toxic tita. Oh, hashtag toxic tita. Right. So this is the interlocutor's card. So Sir Joe, this is your situation. Okay. So the setting is the community health center. So health center sa barangay health center. Okay. So you came to the community center for advice regarding your 10-year-old nephew who's coming to stay with you for the Easter holidays. Okay. You notice, Sir Nano, they didn't tell you the name of the nephew because you have the choice, okay, of providing the information. It's up to you. Okay, up to the interlocutor. Now, the boy suffers from epilepsy with tonic-clonic grand mal seizures. He's on medication and has had several fits since the condition was first diagnosed 2 years ago. Anong gusto mong mangyari? You want to know what you should do, okay, if he has a fit. Let's correct this one. If he has a fit while staying with you. So ano lang, he's not seizing right now. Okay? You're just trying to anticipate things. So what's your task, Sir Joe? You need to explain your concerns to the nurse. Okay? You need to ask what happens during a seizure and how long one could last. And you need to inquire if there are any precautions that you can take to ensure that your nephew doesn't have a seizure. So that's the interlocutor's card.
Okay.
How about the nurse's card? Show our audience. Okay, candidate card number 10, epilepsy setting, syempre, community health center. So it's not an emergency room, it's not a hospital ward, it's not a private clinic, it's a community health center, so it's public. A patient of yours has come to see you. So this is my card. I'm the nurse. The patient has a 10-year-old nephew who suffers from epilepsy with tonic-clonic grand mal seizures and is on medication. The boy has had several fits since the condition was first diagnosed 2 years ago. The nephew is coming to stay with your patient for the Easter holidays. So anong kailangan kong gawin dito? I need to know about and supervise the child's medication. Advise that if a fit develops, remain calm. So basically, the information is already here. Diba? Lay the boy on his side and move any obstacles out of the way. Inform that most seizures last less than 3 minutes. Say that sometimes there's a loss of bladder or bowel control and tongue biting can occur. Warn that the fit may be followed by a period of confusion or a need for sleep. Advise to allow the boy to do normal activities for his age group and answer the patient's questions. Now, a piece of advice, pwede niyong sulatan yan. Remember that you can write on the card because it's going to be printed on paper. So don't hesitate. In fact, I advise my students to number them. So sulatan niyo 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Why? Because numbers are easier to follow than bullet points. Okay. Numbers are easier to follow than bullet points. If you just rely on the bullet points, you might actually skip over some of them, or you might get them in the wrong order, and that's not going to be good for you most of the time. So mas maganda numberan nyo. You might also want to underline or encircle the tasks, the verbs, the major things that you need to do, and you'll be given 3 minutes to prepare for this one. Okay, what if you see something, you see a word that you don't know how to pronounce? You are encouraged to ask your interlocutor. If you don't know how to pronounce something, then you ask, because I have interviewed people who said diabetes. Okay, what's the proper pronunciation? Tama ba yan? Diabetes? It should be diabetes, right? I've heard candidates say, ano ba yun? Eczema. Pero it should be a bit different, diba? Eczema dapat siya. So I've seen this word there. Let me type it in the chat box. So how do you pronounce this? That one. In capital letters. Rosa. Okay. If you don't know how to pronounce that, you ask your interlocutor and they will gladly tell you, because they're there to help you out, not to give you a difficult time. Okay. So if there's something you don't understand on the card, then please ask them. Huwag mahiyang magtanong. It's a very expensive test. You have the right to ask. All right. So Sir Joe, do you have any questions? Roseshi.
Seishi.
Madali lang to. You just take a look at the last letter. Okay, it's letter E, di ba? So it's just rosacea. Rosacea. If it ends with A, it's rosacea. Okay, if it ends with D, it's rosacea. Yeah, that's an easy way of
Say,
pronouncing. So anyway, that's not our topic. Our topic is epilepsy, right? So, sir, so far, is there anything you'd like to ask about your card? Something card. Here's your card, by the way. There.
explain your concerns to the person. Ask what generally happens during session. Last. 1 minute.
So, no questions?
Okay, sir. Inquire.
Right. So I'm gonna give you a few minutes. Okay, and then tell me when you're ready to do the role play. And don't worry about the timing. Usually it's the patient who times the 5 minutes. Pero this time I'll do it because I'm more familiar with the process. Yun lang. For the people watching and the audience, so try to imagine what you're gonna do if you were in this situation. So kung kayo yung nurse, how would you handle this situation? Okay, what would you say to your patients?
Try ko na, sir.
Okay, you still have time, but if you're ready, then pwede naman.
Hindi ko, I don't have actually the idea, but I will try to.
Okay lang yan. It's easy because you're the uncle. You're not even the father. You're the uncle of the patient, and then you're there to ask. So ano lang yan? Just keep
Yeah.
on asking, and
All
I'll
right.
take care of the answer. So I'll play the part of the nurse. I'll be the candidate for now, right? And who starts the role play? It has to be the nurse. Okay, in the IELTS test, it's the interviewer who always initiates the conversation, not the question. But for OET, you're in charge. So yung candidate, the nurse or the doctor or the veterinarian or the dentist, kayo dapat yung mauna. So I will be, so I will now start the role play. Okay, by the way, sabi niya dito, a patient of yours. So we already know each other. Okay, so sir, my name is Nurse Lee in this situation and you are Joe, all right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I will now begin the role play. Oh, hi, Joe. Long time no see. What are you doing here?
Actually, sir, I came to visit my nephew, Jonathan.
Okay.
I'm planning to bring him in my house,
Mhm.
but I'm troubled because I'm staying in the far flung area, and
Okay.
and I am so worried about his condition, which is he has this kind of disease
Mhm.
or syndrome, epilepsy. So can you
Oh, okay. I see.
um,
Go ahead,
as
please.
as a nurse, I would like you to give me some ideas
Mm.
on how I can help my nephew in this situation. If ever there will be a attack at my
Oh,
home.
yeah. Yeah. So I totally understand where you're coming from, and yeah, I'll try to give you as much information as possible. Okay, so no need to worry, because it's easier than you think, and it's actually quite manageable if you know the procedures. Okay. So is it okay if I ask you a few questions first?
Yes, of course, sir.
Yeah, so you said his name was Jonathan, right? So
Yes, sir.
Jonathan. And how old is the boy?
It's going to be 7 this
Mhm.
coming year.
10, 10, 10.
This coming
Oh,
month, sorry.
okay, so okay, all right. And how long will he be staying with you?
Most probably he's gonna stay with me for 2 weeks.
Oh, about 2 weeks. Okay. So yeah, you need to know what to do because the longer he stays with you, the higher the chances of a seizure. Anyway, in the past year or two, do you have any idea how many times he's had a fit?
As per my
Mhm.
brother, the father of Jonathan,
Yeah.
recently the disease is come and go. Most frequently when he was at night. So
Oh,
I'm afraid if it happened at my home, and I can you give me some first aid on what to do?
okay, sure. So, just in case that something like this happens, the first thing to remember is to remain calm because you cannot panic. You have to be there for your nephew. All right. So, when there's a seizure, usually they collapse. Okay. So, make sure that you clear the space around him because he might bang his head on a hard object or he might get wounded because he will not be in control of his body. Okay. He's going to be shaking. He's going to be what? He might flip over, he might be shaking, right? So, what else? You have to lay him on his side because he also will not be in control of his mouth, so he might vomit or he might choke on his own saliva. So put him on his side so that it can flow out. Also, please check the mouth and make sure there's nothing. Okay, nothing inside that might cause choking, but remember not to put your hands inside his mouth because he might bite you and that will cause further problems. Okay. So just remain calm. Don't put anything in his mouth. And then you watch him. Do not leave. Never leave a seizing person. Most of these things will last for 3 minutes, usually 1 minute. Okay. But it can be as long as 3 minutes, but usually less than that. Is that clear so far? You got that?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I have a follow-up
Ah,
question, sir.
oh, don't call me sir. It's okay. We know each other.
Yeah, I have a follow-up question. Is
Yeah,
there
sure.
any sign and symptoms that I can take note prior to the seizure attack?
Oh, yeah, yeah. It doesn't happen suddenly. Usually, you will see a few signs. There might be some confusion. Okay. Or what? He might start feeling some weakness. You might notice some shaking. Well, it's different for each patient. I guess the best way to know this would be to ask the mother and the father because they've probably experienced it before, so they know the signs. Okay? Because he's not really my patient. I haven't seen him before. All right.
All right.
Okay.
Um,
So a few more things that you need to remember. Don't be surprised if there's a little, urination or a little bit of bowel movement when he's having a seizure because again, he's not in control of that. So you can expect that. Don't be surprised. Okay. And after the seizure, he might feel confused or he might feel sleepy. Please let him rest. Okay. So that he can recover his energy. Okay. So is
all
there
right.
anything you'd like to know?
Mm. Do I need to bring some sort of medication just in case for me to give to him?
Yeah, he probably has a prescription and some medicine, so you can ask the parents, okay, to give you a copy of the prescription, and then if he has any current medication, make sure that you bring it with you. And if the doctor has prescribed regular maintenance medication, then don't miss that because it's very important that you follow the doctor's orders. Um, would you like to know a few things, what to avoid so that he doesn't have a seizure in the first place?
Yes, of course, sir. Can you? Oh,
Okay, that's okay. So, first of all, okay, you don't really need to restrict his movements because he's a child, he's a young boy. If he wants to play, you should allow him. Just make sure that he doesn't get too tired. So a little physical activity is fine. It might even be helpful, but not to the point of exhaustion because that could trigger an imbalance and that could trigger a seizure. Another thing, please avoid loud and sudden music because it might overload his nervous system. You should also avoid bright and flashing lights. Okay, and another important thing to remember, do not stress him out. Okay, if you find yourself in a stressful situation, make sure that you shield him from it, because stress can also be another trigger for epilepsy. Okay, but that's it. You don't need to treat them as too special, because they're normal people too. As long as you know the precautions, then you can have a happy vacation with each other.
All right. Thank you so much for your information.
All right. So Joe, if you have questions, you know where to find me. All right. You have my contact number. If something pops up in mind during the 2-week vacation, please give me a call. Right.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. That's the end of the first role play. And then they will give you another card. There you go. Urinary tract infection. You will have 3 minutes to prepare, and then another 5 minutes for the role play. Ayun. So that's a sample role play, a very high level. Okay, what's the required score for nurses? It's a B, right? The one I showed you is definitely more than a B. It's at least a B plus. It's probably an A. Probably, no, I'm not claiming it's automatically an A, but it's definitely high level. Okay.
Okay,
So,
sir.
advice, no need to get nervous, because all the information you need is on the task card. Okay, and remember, you're the professional, not the interviewer. Okay, don't be intimidated by the blonde hair, because some interlocutors are foreign. Okay, but a lot of them are actually Filipino, usually female. Okay, so don't be intimidated by the looks, because they will try to help you out as much as they can. It's their job, okay, to make you feel comfortable. Okay, and remember, they're not medical experts. You're the medical expert. So mas alam ninyo yung sitwasyon kaysa sa kanila. Okay? So I'm open for questions now. If you have questions regarding IELTS or OET, then please ask them now. May tanong pa po ba? So here's the magic question. Okay, which one should you take? Can I ask the admins, so far with the discussion, ano yung which one do you prefer? Sa palagay niyo?
If we were given a chance, sir, na pwede ang OET before sa visa screen, I'll choose OET. I think I can answer the questions more easier compared to IELTS.
Yeah, compared, that's a keyword, compared to the IELTS, it seems that it's easier. I'm not saying hindi ko sinabing easy, because easy is different from easier. Easier is comparative, it's relative. It's not easy, definitely. You still need to prepare for it. You still need to practice. Pero there are fewer things to do, like for writing. My gosh, that's a blessing. It's only one task. You don't need to study line graphs or bar graphs or maps. Diba? And for speaking, it's always gonna be medical. If you want to take a look at the topics that I have in my collection, okay, it can be burns, paracetamol overdose, diabetic foot care, an accident, sunburn, cancer, Alzheimer's, head injuries. Okay, but all of these you will have some knowledge. Instead of getting asked, do you think that robots will replace teachers in the future? That can be a very difficult question for some people. Okay, now the problem with OET is the price. Okay, IELTS, it's less than 12,000. Okay, but for OET, it's almost 22K. So that's the barrier for most people. Okay, my questions pa po? About either one.
Sa mga interlocutor, yung parang training po ba nila is different from the IELTS exam? Like, for instance, yung nila, yung tawag nito, the way they grade, parang ganon.
Oh, okay. That's important. In the IELTS test, your interviewer will be grading you at the same time. Okay. So your IELTS examiner is conducting the interview and they'll also be grading you. It's different for OET. In the OET, they don't call them examiners, no? Not OET examiners. They call them interlocutor because they're just there to conduct the interview. They don't grade. Okay. How do you get graded? Your recording, the file, okay, will be sent to Melbourne. O yung swerte ng file, nakarating sa Melbourne. Puti pa siya. So it will be sent to Melbourne. And there, in their office, there will be a rater. Okay, so it's going to be another person listening to the recording. Okay, that's the main difference. So they actually, to answer your question, they don't grade the same way because OET interlocutors, interviewers, they don't grade. They just interview. Okay, so ang importante talaga, yung boses nyo. So it doesn't really matter what you're wearing, how you look like, because the person grading you will not see your face, they will not see your clothes.
Okay, so different po yung ano sir, yung parang nag-interview sa mag-grade.
Yeah,
So,
definitely. Oo, magkaiba sila.
Unlike sa IELTS, kung sino po yung nag-interview, siya yung mag-grade.
Oh, siya rin yung mag-grade. Tama.
So,
That's right.
Yung recording lang po nun yung ano. So,
that's why there's a big penalty kapag hindi na-record. Kunwari, hindi siya na-record nung ng interlocutor. May penalty sa kanila yun. Babayaran nila. They will pay for. They have a monetary penalty. Hindi ko lang alam kung magkano na ngayon. Okay, but before it was it was quite high. So kailangan talaga ma-record nila.
Tawag po doon sa IELTS, I think nangyayari yan. So, penalty po ba sa kanila? I mean, going back to IELTS naman po. If for instance, ang examiner hindi po niya na-record, is there a penalty po for them about that?
I don't know yet. Okay, mas malalim yung knowledge ko sa sa interviewing for the OET. Okay. I've never heard of a penalty for them. Okay, I'm gonna find out soon. All right. Pero definitely, if it wasn't recorded, IELTS OET, papatawag kayo, you're gonna need to return and then do another interview. Okay. In relation to that, sige, kasi parang mali yung attitudes ng ibang candidates because I personally know some candidates, okay, na nangyari yan, hindi na-record yung interview. And then they were really depressed about it. They were sad about it. So their second performance was worse than the first one. Lumala yung performance nila. Sa feeling nila, that's how they felt. Okay? And that's the wrong attitude. Why? If it doesn't get recorded, isipin mo na lang, that's a second chance. That's a free test. Instead of paying another 11,000 or 21,000 pesos, nakalibre ka ng test. And then, use the experience, the previous experience, the previous interview, to improve. Ganun lang yan eh. So ano yan, second chance yan, di ba? So imbes na inega natin siya, let's take it positively. And if you have that positive attitude, it will lead to a better score. Kasi alam mo na yung mangyari, ba't ka kakabahan eh? Alam mo na kung anong itatanong nila. Diba? So don't get angry, don't get depressed, just appreciate the second chance. Questions pa regarding IELTS?
About answer, remarking. Same po ba sila ng IELTS, only writing and speaking?
Oh, you can choose the subtest na ipapa-remark ninyo. Okay, because in the past, especially for IELTS, if you wanted to have a remark, okay, they will double check everything. But alam nyo naman, recently, pwede nang mamili. Okay, because you can keep the scores that you want. Yung mababa, yun na lang yung pare-check mo. It also saves them time. Kasi imbes na titignan nila lahat, okay, titignan lang na. Kung gusto mo, speaking lang or writing lang, pwede mong piliin. Okay, but hopefully, very few of you will ask for a remarking because the goal here, di ba? The goal here is to pass it on the first try. Ba't ka magpapadoble ang mahal-mahal ng test?
Exactly.
Diba?
Yung po sir, tawag nito, magkano po yung babayaran if for instance, magpapa-remark sila?
It changes kasi it's pegged to the 'di ba, to a foreign currency. So
Mm.
paiba-iba siya. I'm not aware of the price right now. But if any of you, dear audience, if any of the viewers would need assistance, if you would like us to help you, contact us. No, we will help you out with it. Even if you're not enrolled, okay, tutulungan po namin kayo. We're open to everyone, and don't worry, we will not force anyone to enroll. I've heard that some review centers do that. Hindi ka asikasuhin unless you're a student. Sa amin hindi. Okay, even if you're not enrolled in our institution, even if you're enrolled in another center, we will not hard sell you, and we will still accommodate your requests. Walang problema. Open for everyone.
Okay, I think that's all, sir. There's no question on YouTube. So go with your ano na, sir.
All right, so thank you very much. So, just a little plugging. Okay, so why choose us? We're a small company, pero nakakasabay kami sa malalaking review centers. Okay, you can ask British Council and IDB about us. Okay, why do you need help? Because a self-review isn't enough for higher levels. Okay? It might be fine if you just need band score 5, but if you're a professional, you're trying to get 6.5 or 7, then you need all the help that you can get. Okay, you have access to teachers. Okay, Monday to Sunday, and you can choose the time slot. Okay, we are small, but we are highly trusted. Okay, we don't employ a factory approach. If you know anyone who's enrolled in our review center, you ask them about us. Okay, you ask for their honest opinion. Tignan nyo kung anong sinasabi nila tungkol sa amin. We also provide you with daily guidance. We have a private Facebook page. Okay, it's only for enrolled students, and there we post all the videos, the recordings of the lectures. We post homework. Optional naman siya. If you want to do it, pwede. If you don't want to do it, pwede rin. So we share everything there. Materials also. We are very flexible. Okay, it doesn't matter where you're located. We have clients from the Middle East. We have clients in the UK, in Australia, in New Zealand. Okay, we will make time for you, right? And we don't give you any dubious offers. When we tell you this is the price, yung package namin, yun na po yun. We don't suddenly say, hindi, kulang ng 2,000, kulang ng 3,000. No. What we tell you, that's it. We're very honest when dealing with clients. Okay? So maraming salamat po. If you need help, okay, if you need more details, we actually have some free classes tomorrow. So tomorrow, Sunday, 9:30 to 12 noon, we have a free IELTS class. So we will discuss it in detail. We will show you materials. We will teach you more techniques. 9:30 to 12 noon po. You can scan the code to register. And chat, maybe you can post the link dito sa chat box. Okay, so please join us tomorrow. And then, if you need more information, detailed info about OET, it's from 6:30 to 9 in the evening. Okay, we have guests from the British Council and from the provider of the ACE testing hub. So, hindi lang kami yung guest, yung mismo ng mga nagpapa-exam, they'll be attending tomorrow, and you'll be able to ask them questions directly from the horse's mouth. So you can scan the code here, or the links are in the chat box. There you go. You can register po, and we will wait for you tomorrow. Totally free. Okay. And if you decide to enroll with us, just mention the online discount. It's worth 500 pesos if you enroll until September 26. So yun lang po. Okay, maraming salamat, and hope to see you tomorrow if you want more details about IELTS and OET. IFNG, as always, thank you very much. We appreciate the opportunity you've given us.
Okay, thank you, Sir Lee. So thank you, World English. We will post your links na lang po sa ano namin sa page.
Oh yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Tapos
So
na
I
lang.
think let's call it a night. So thank you, Sir Lee, Miss Cha, Mr.